One of the biggest questions surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers entering the 2025 season is if they can get over the hump in the playoffs for the first time since 2017, having gone one and done in 5 different trips. To try and get over that hump, the Steelers enlisted the 4-time NFL MVP Aaron Rodgers to be the starting quarterback this season. Though questions remain about Rodgers and his ability to play at a high level, the general consensus is that the Steelers will be good enough to make the playoffs, though many believe a 9-8 season is on the horizon for the black and gold. CBS Sports' Jeff Kerr doesn't see it that way. In a piece for CBSSports.com Friday afternoon, Kerr stated that it's a reality the Steelers will win 10 games with Rodgers at quarterback and will be good enough to make the playoffs. Winning in the playoffs is another conversation, but Kerr is adamant the Steelers will be in the postseason once again. Our latest videos, whether Rodgers is still elite or not, is irrelevant. He's better than any quarterback Pittsburgh had on the roster. The Steelers also have some playmakers on offense in Jaylen Warren, DK Metcalf, and Robert Woods, along with an improving offensive line. Kerr writes regarding the Steelers with Rodgers, according to CBSSports.com. Their defense also should be a top 10 unit and likely will get the TJ Watt holdout resolved sooner rather than later. Pittsburgh isn't elite, but this team is good enough to make the playoffs. The Steelers did make it last year with the Russell Wilson-Justin Fields combination. They should win 10 games with Rodgers at quarterback if he stays healthy. On paper, there's a lot to like with this Steelers team from a 30,000-foot view. Adding Rodgers to the mix is an upgrade for the Steelers at quarterback, even with him being 41 years old and coming off a tough season with the New York Jets in which they went 5-12. He still has a great arm, a quick release, and can win between the ears, which has many on the Steelers roster and coaching staff excited for the upcoming season. The wide receiver room should be better than last season with the trade for DK Metcalf and the growth from Calvin Austin III, not to mention hopefully the health for Roman Wilson and the presence of veteran Robert Woods. Meanwhile, the tight ends could have an even bigger role this season under offensive coordinator Arthur Smith as Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington appear poised to take the next step. Even the offensive line should be much better this season after gaining valuable experience last year. The run game could see an improvement with the addition of rookie Caleb Johnson and the signing of Kenneth Gainwell, giving the Steelers pieces that fit better into the zone rushing scheme that Smith wants to employ. Defensively, Pittsburgh added some good pieces in veteran cornerback Darius Slay and veteran safety Juan Thornhill, while shoring up the trenches with the selections of Derek Harmon and Yehia Black in the draft. With those additions, coupled with the pieces returning, the defense should once again be pretty good for the black and gold. Knowing all that, the Steelers should be able to win 10 games, assuming health with Rodgers. That's a big question for him as he was banged up throughout the 2024 season with the Jets. But if he's healthy and can just focus on playing football in a good environment, the Steelers should be able to take advantage of a weaker schedule, especially early on, to win 10 games at least. If they do that, then all bets are off in the playoffs. They believe they have the quarterback to get them over the hump in the postseason. Of course, they believed that last year, too, with Russell Wilson. With the official signing of Aaron Rodgers, the biggest question looming over the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason has been answered. They've got their quarterback for 2025, whether you believe in the mercurial 41-year-old or not. The Steelers' offense will look a lot different from a personnel standpoint than it did last season. Aaron Rodgers replaced Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. DK Metcalf is WR1 instead of George Pickens, and rookie running back Caleb Johnson will pair up with Jaylen Warren. Sports Illustrated's Gilberto Manzano is confident that the Steelers upgraded at the most important positions this offseason. In an article from this past Wednesday, he listed the Steelers as one of his biggest offseason winners, noting that they could make real noise in the AFC. The Steelers have gotten overlooked for their productive offseason, partly because they waited for a 41-year-old quarterback who's past his prime, wrote Manzano. The Metcalf trade deserves more praise. Even with the departure of George Pickens, Metcalf is probably the better player because he's a difference maker with or without the ball. It could be argued Pittsburgh is thin at pass catcher. That's where Caleb Johnson can help, and the versatile back out of Iowa will also give the Steelers a boost in the running game. If Rodgers can stay healthy behind an emerging offensive line and replicate his production from last season with the Jets, this Steelers squad might have what it takes to make real noise in the loaded AFC. or at least enough to win their first playoff game in 9 years. This team still has plenty to prove as a potential Super Bowl contender, but there's no question that it got better this offseason. Manzano's optimism is encouraging, but it's true that many analysts believe the exact opposite regarding the Steelers' offseason. Some even gave them among the worst offseason grades in the NFL. The truth is somewhere in between. Unless Aaron Rodgers reverts to his Green Bay Packers years, he probably won't be a substantial upgrade from Wilson and Fields last year. Rodgers merely replicating his production from the Jets would not be enough for the Steelers to make serious noise in the AFC and win a playoff game. Despite some decent volume stats, Rodgers was 25th in the NFL in QBR last season, with just a 63% completion percentage. Metcalf isn't leaps and bounds ahead of Pickens, but he's got a longer track record of success, a more polished route tree, and a more mature off-the-field presence. That being said, the Steelers are still thin at pass catcher. They'll need either Calvin Austin III and Roman Wilson, or maybe both, to emerge as reliable secondary options for Rodgers. Wide receiver coach Zach Azzanni believes they're up for the challenge, but it remains to be seen. On the other side of the field, Darius Slay should help the secondary, but that unit is still questionable coming off an ugly stretch of play at the end of last season. Rookie DT Derek Harmon should make an instant impact as both a run stopper and pass rusher on the defensive line. And as long as TJ Watt signs an extension, the usual suspects of Cam Hayward and what should still create nightmares for opposing offenses. The Steelers may have slightly improved their stock from last season, but Manzano is probably giving Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin a bit more credit than they deserve. There's plenty of drama brewing around the NFL after minicamp, with multiple players skipping. One of them, in particular, is a player who could help the Washington Commanders, Pittsburgh Steelers star TJ Watt. The Steelers' edge is among the top players in the NFL, and when he's at his best, there's a strong argument to be made that he's the best player in the world. However, as Watt searches for a new contract, he hasn't shown up, and it's tough to blame him. Could Washington Commanders pull off TJ Watt move? After the Washington Commanders impressed a season ago, making the postseason in the first year with Jayden Daniels under center, there's no telling what the ceiling might be for this organization. The Commanders have gone through plenty in the past few decades, but things seem to be turning for them. If they can continue this hot stretch, the Commanders should have one of the brighter futures in the NFL. Adding a player of Watt's caliber would only make sense, and there's reason to believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers could have to eventually trade him if they don't give him the money he's looking for. In a recent trade idea from Last Word on Sports, that's exactly what would happen. Last Word on Sports spoke about how the Commanders lost a few players during the offseason and what would perfectly replace them. The offense was explosive with the undertaking of quarterback Jayden Daniels, and now with a new blueprint, they will be even more on fire as long as they can sign Terry McLaurin to a new contract. Whatever happens there, the defense was nothing special last year. Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner had their moments, but since they lost Dante Fowler Jr., they will have to find a somewhat close replacement to him, since he led the team in sacks. What is the perfect match for this defense and could turn this organization into a well-rounded team, they wrote. Would Steelers listen to TJ Watt offers? Despite the Washington Commanders' potential interest in landing Watt, if he becomes available, the Pittsburgh Steelers have the final say on any trade. It might sound wild, but there's even a scenario where the Steelers could look to make him sit and not trade them. It'd be surprising, but things happen. However, according to a recent report from Mike Garafolo, the Steelers are pleased with the progress of their contract talks with Watt. That could be bad news for the Commanders, but until the deal is done, nothing should be counted out. I don't feel that this one is contentious, Garafolo said. If a player misses mandatory minicamp over the next couple days, you don't have to fine a player. We'll see what the Steelers wind up doing on this one. I know that they feel really good about the talks that they've had and the offers that they've made. Mike Tomlin has the belief that TJ Watt is going to be just fine working away from the facility, so they're not stressing about that part of it. If there was a pressure point right now, and the start of training camp seems like it's a pressure point, I feel like this thing would get done. And it will get done at some point.